Hey there, Ninja Clan. It's Lupine Fiasco, back with some more FaB gameplay through the Talishar client. It's been a while since we've played a Bravo game. That's what I'm going to show you today. This Bravo is on Titan's Fist and Steelbraid Buckler. We're going to look at how that plays out as far as Bravo dominating, Bravo's aggression, and possible Bravo fatigue as the game moves on. Let's take a look at our sideboard. We can see what we are working with today. This is the deck. We are still on our Searing Emberblade. We are going to be leaving the Pouncing Links behind, bringing in Mask of Momentum, show you what the matchup looks like exactly. If you do want to play this list on Talishar or follow along with Sideboard Decision, you can find the deck link in the video description below. While you're down there, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, like the video, and leave a comment. I love hearing from you guys. This is what we're doing in the Bravo matchup. This matchup guide is updated following this game, the game you're about to see. I am playing Warmonger's Diplomacy in the 60, and I am leaving all of my Flame Call Awakenings and 2 Phoenix Flames in the sideboard. This game has prompted me to put Flame Calls and a Phoenix Flame back into the main as fatigue protection. This Bravo is not setting out to fatigue us, but as you'll see, there is a moment in the game where he decides that fatiguing is the best line, and having a second Phoenix Flame in our discard would be really, really helpful. Mask of Momentum comes in over Pouncing Links, not because we're ever expecting to trigger Mask of Momentum, but because we want Bravo to block us as if we were going to trigger Mask of Momentum. Bravo's best turns involve a 4 or 5 card hand where he can dominate and pitch 2 or 3 blues to play Spinal Crush, Starstruck, Crippling Crush. We want Bravo blocking our attacks rather than just letting the damage through and smacking back with Disruption. With all that in mind, let's pop into the game. We'll see how this all plays out. Let's get into the game. We win the die roll, we put Bravo on the play. There is a chance that we get high rolled. Putting Bravo on the play, he could draw 3 blues and a Starstruck or Spinal Crush, dominate one of those out. We don't have the Reinforce the Line in hand to be able to block around it, especially not Starstruck. But Bravo just cycling some cards, looking to set up that pitch stack. We have a Fate Foreseen that we'd love to get into our arsenal, and thankfully have enough Draconic attacks in our hand that we can play out a full attack cycle. Bravo letting the Mounting Anger hit is interesting, not something I would have expected, but not something I'm complaining about either. The Spinal Crush blocking the Emberblade does interrupt our mask trigger. We won't be able to put enough attacks on this chain to get the draw effect, but we will be able to push another point of damage. However, Bravo down 6 on turn 2 is pretty good for us to start off this game, given that Fate Foreseen in arsenal. Bravo playing out a Cartilage Crush is not an attack I see very often. 7 power. The Crush effect is a Frostbite tax. We kind of need every blue in this hand. It is an awkward hand. We can turn one of these blues into a Phoenix Flame. Our next turn would then be Phoenix Flame, Emberblade, Lava Vein Loyalty, Lava Burst. So we kind of need all of these cards. We can use our Fate Foreseen to block the Crush effect, but with the floating resource we will have from pitching a blue to the Emberblade, we would be able to pay that tax. So keeping the Fate Foreseen is an option for us. We could take 7, throw 9 points of damage back on Bravo's turn, potentially draw a card, but with a Fate Foreseen in arsenal, the draw trigger doesn't really do anything for us. I elect here to play the Fate Foreseen, but if I was to make this call now, I think keeping the Fate in arsenal is a better plan, because we aren't going to use this resource that we save by not needing to pitch it to the Crush effect. The advantage of playing out the Fate Foreseen is that our mask trigger is now live. We are going to really start the mask chain here with Emberblade, follow that up with Lava Vein Loyalty, and end with Lava Burst. 5 is going to be hard for Bravo to block if he decides not to block this 2. So there's a chance that this Lava Burst could draw a card. We stick that in Arsenal, and our mask trigger was good. But Bravo is incentivized to block this just to not take damage. So not having the Fate Foreseen in Arsenal is going to be kind of a problem, potentially. Maybe we get lucky and don't need the G-React, but that is pretty unlikely against a Bravo. Bravo giving us cards instead of armor here is interesting. 2 reds, so I'm going to assume that Bravo's hand 3 reds and a blue. So not really the goods, as they say. Crush Confidence is another attack that I don't see a lot of. This is a Sleep Dart humble effect. If it hits and we get crushed, our hero power turns off. So we could just take this damage, go to 30, keep this Stab Wound and Emberblade, but not be able to pick up a Phoenix Flame. Our Fi is off anyway, but we are going to present a Mask trigger and follow it up with a Snatch. If I'm making this decision now, I don't like this block. I like taking 3 and presenting 3. We're ahead on life. We want to incentivize Bravo to block, and Bravo loves blocking 3 power attacks with a card from hand. Here, giving us a card from hand and armor to stop the card draw, followed up with a Snatch. We'll see if Bravo wants to give some armor, and he does. Bravo with 4 cards in hand, 3 in hand, 1 in arsenal, and we draw up. We will see if we're getting dominated. Not dominated, just an undominated Starstruck. Obviously, we need to not get crushed. We cannot take the 4 damage. Nothing in our hand is playable, so we do need to block at least 7 to be able to even play out this Snatch. So we have a few options. Blocking with Soul Bead Strike and Lava Vein Loyalty here sounds great. That's 6. We need to put another 1 in front of this Starstruck. The best we can do is 2. Either Flamescale Furnace or Ronin Renegade. So we have a decision to make as far as which we want to block with. Do we want to save our armor for late game dominates, or do we want to keep a head jab in hand to push damage? Following my last thought about blocking the Cranial Crush with a Stab Wound instead of attacking with the Emberblade, I like making what might be a controversial call here and blocking with the Furnace. I want to keep the pressure on this Bravo. He wants to block. He's shown that he does not mind over-blocking even if it means preserving the armor. So I like attacking with the Ronin Renegade here, which means we're going to block the Furnace. We get to send 3 damage at Bravo, we stay ahead on life, and then we get to follow that with a Snatch. Bravo does still have an easy armor block with the Tectonic Plating and the Steel Braid Buckler, but we just want to run that armor down. Bravo has been giving us quite a few big attacks. We've seen a Starstruck and a Spinal Crush get pitched, a Starstruck get used here, a Spinal Crush be used as a blocker, a Crippling Crush be used to block. These are all the big attacks that Bravo really wants to dominate and that we need our armor and defense reactions for. Bravo just isn't making us use that, isn't making us need to have it. Drawing the Sink here is pretty good because this is an attack that we are going to want to block. With an all-red hand, the tax here is pretty devastating. So we have some options of how we want to play out this turn. We can just use a Sink, block for 4, take 3. But on our turn, we don't have great options for what we want to do. We can E-Strike, bottom of Lava Burst. Draw a card and snap it. We can E-Strike, go again, Blaze Headlong. Overall, I'm not super excited about this hand, and I want to keep the sink below. So I think the best option here is going to be blocking with Lava Burst and Flamescale Furnace, taking 3, and on our turn sending E-Strike for 7, bottoming this Blaze Headlong, and arsenaling the sink below. It's 7 damage. It keeps our Snapdragon Scalers. Yes, it uses the back half of Furnace, but again, Bravo has just not been making us need to have armor, and we've already seen more than half of the attacks that we would want armor for. The biggest downside to this play is going to be Command and Conquer. We haven't seen one from Bravo yet. He has churned through a significant amount of his deck. So a CNC here on the sink below is pretty bad, but speaking of making people have it, we are going to make him have a CNC. Keeping a sink in arsenal for any potential dominate is just good. Bravo giving us the CNC here, not ideal for us. This is what we were afraid of. Our sink is in danger and we really don't want to lose it, but we do have a lucky reinforce the line. So how we can deal with this CNC is block with the Lava Burst, reinforce the line up to 7, protect our sink below, and then send a Command and Conquer of our own. Bravo does not have Crown of Providence, so this arsenal is in danger. Bravo is going to have to protect it, giving at least 1 card to do it if he wanted to block with Tech Plating, Crater Fist, and a card from hand. And our sink below lives another day. So we get 2 cards from Bravo. Still looking good from a fatigue perspective. Deck sizes are about at parity. Life values are about at parity. We are ready to block a big dominate attack. Bravo instead giving us Titan's Fist for 4. So what do we want to do with this hand of cards? We have a pretty good hand here. Ronin Renegade, Mounting Anger, Command and Conquer is a 13 damage turn cycle with Disruption thrown in. Likely Bravo is going to want to block either this Ronin or this Mounting Anger. We don't really threaten the Mask of Momentum, but we're doing so much on our turn anyway. The question is whether we want to sink below this Titan's Fist just for tempo. I don't like that plan. I think we're going to have a very strong turn that is going to force some blocks from Bravo. We're going to get a better use out of this sink below, trying to fix an all-red hand or an all-blue hand. So if I'm making this call now, let's just pass block and reactions. We'll take our 4, and we'll send 13 on our turn. We block with the CNC here, putting Bravo on a pummel, just wanting to get the CNC out of our hand, get some amount of block. We won't have to discard from the pummel, but considering that we can use these 2 floating resources to Emberblade, they aren't going to waste, we don't need the CNC. I think this is a fine play. It isn't something I talked about or considered, but I think it is good enough. Bravo giving us a Command and Conquer here is great news for us. Our sink below lives through another turn cycle, unless Bravo has another CNC. It's possible. And Bravo taking quite a bit of damage, so we can expect something is cooking on the other side of the board. Thankfully, that's what the sink below is for. Non-dominated Crippling Crush is interesting. We have our sink below that we're definitely going to use here. We have this Command and Conquer that we can definitely look to use. We can also block with CNC Mounting Anger. Just keep 2 head jabs, throw those, deal 6 points of damage, and call it good. which I think is what we're going to do. With an all-red hand and no Furnace, there just isn't a lot we can do with Mounting Anger and Command and Conquer. They're just kind of here. They would go in the arsenal. So let's block 5 here. We will sink below up to 9, take 2, have a pretty substantial life lead, and be able to crack back with 6. There is an argument for arsenaling one of these cards. We've seen 2 Command and Conquers on Bravo's side of the board, but just dozens and dozens of reps into our very good local Bravo has convinced me, try not to arsenal damage. Arsenal something if you need to, if it would otherwise go to waste, sure. This isn't like Uzuri or Arachne where you absolutely want to avoid putting anything in arsenal. You want to pitch it if you can get even a little more value. But arsenaling a head jab just to try to set up for a bigger turn, getting maybe 4 points of value out of it rather than 3, just feels bad when you get Command and Conquered and you get no value out of it. Sending off our 2 head jabs, getting cards out of Bravo's hand, and we'll draw up to 4 and try again. Warmonger's Diplomacy here, plus Rising Resentment, is just 7 damage. We are faced with a Titan's Fist. This is too bad. We can block with Warmongers and Shuko. We would want to keep the Shuko. We can block with Warmongers and Mask Momentum and just say Bravo is at low enough life, even with the remaining armor, that we're probably not going to get value out of Mask. We want to preserve our damage, preserve cards in hand. We can start to look at the difference in deck sizes here and say we are heading towards a potential fatigue situation. We have an option to block with Rising Resentment and reinforce the line over the top to 6, prevent the on-hit from Titan's Fist. On our turn, we send 6 damage back. But I do like blocking with 3 and 2, using the Mask Momentum. On our turn, we will rise from the ashes, play Rising Resentment and our Phoenix Flame for 7 damage, and arsenal that reinforce the line. I think that is our best plan moving forward. Also keeps cards available for us to use, which is a little more damage, maybe gets us out of a potential fatigue spot. It's about this time that I'm starting to realize, hey, maybe having a second Phoenix Flame in the deck for this sort of situation would be pretty good. It's my understanding that Bravos are running Titan's Fist and Buckler into FaB more often. It isn't so much of a fringe plan anymore as the plan. Anothos losing value in this matchup compared to having more defensive options. So being able to play around possible fatigue, I think is just good enough that we want to risk a Poopy 2 block or a non-block. Buckler coming in, Fist coming in for 4. We've got some just bad cards. The Reinforce here is worth keeping, but the Sink Below is not what we want to see. 2 blues and Assault is not what we want to see, even if we can turn one of these into a Phoenix Flame. So we'll block with the Sink Below here and bottom one of these Soul Beat Strikes, just trying to find really anything with Go Again. A Head Jab would be the ideal. That would give us our biggest turn cycle, but really anything would work. Mounting Anger, we draw another Sink Below, just awful. So we are going to keep this Sink Below in hand. We're not going to block 8 here. That's just excessive. But what can we do on this turn? It's kind of tragic. Really, there just isn't a good option. Without a blue, we can't get back our Phoenix Flame and have it be productive. We will do that. This keeps cards in our deck. Being able to pitch our Sink Below here just to get it out of our hand is going to be good for us. We don't intellect penalty ourselves. Play out the Phoenix Flame, pitch the Soul Bead Strike for the Emberblade. Really losing tempo this turn, but that was an awkward hand to draw. 2 blues with Salt with a Sink Below that sinks into a Sink Below. There's a ton we can do there. Bravo coming with a Disable. Blue Disable in every Bravo deck, generally not something that gets played. We have to reinforce the line here. We do want to block, get our reinforce out of the arsenal so that we don't get punished for having an arsenal. The best card to block with in this situation, likely going to be Salt the Wound. Cinderclaw here, pitching for an Emberblade. We don't have a second Phoenix Flame to take advantage of Phi. The card we would love to block with from this hand is Rise from the Ashes, but unfortunately, it being a non-attack does not work with Reinforce the Line. So we're either going to block with our Blue Brand or our Salt the Wound. Blocking with Salt the Wound prevents an extra point of damage. We might as well prevent the damage where we can. Since we still have the Shuko, there is an argument that Brand for 6, Phoenix Flame for 1, Salt for probably 4 is a higher damage turn. Maybe something I should have considered, maybe throwing that Blue Brand out was correct. But this is the line that we choose to pursue. We are going to send 10 points of damage this turn. We have a sizable life lead against Bravo, but we are running out of cards in our deck, and Bravo still has a ton of armor, has been being very conservative with this armor. We get a Crippling Crush out of hand, just another threat that we don't need to worry about. Pitching the Brand for Emberblade, another 3 points of damage, and another card kept in our deck. We see the third CNC, so arsenaling is a little more viable at this point. Bravo getting a little hasty with the seismic surges. They don't often have 2, so clicking through the triggers can be a bit off-putting. We expect we'll just be seeing a Titan's Fist on this turn, and that is what happens. We can take a look at our hand, just make sure we aren't going to block this. We will be attacking with Brand, Ravenous Rabble, Soul Bead Strike, potentially a Snatch, depending on whether the Soul Bead Strike hits. So we are fine to tank 4 points of damage here. We've got a good crackback. Bravo with enough armor that the Soul Bead Strike doesn't need to hit. This is not a situation where we would snap the Soul Bead to make sure we attack with Snatch. We could pitch the Soul Bead Strike to pick up a Phoenix Flame if we really wanted to make sure that we aren't sticking anything in Arsenal, but again, there's no Command and Conquer left in our opponent's deck. We are not concerned about our Arsenal getting disrupted. This line is good, is ideal. 4-3-4 with a potential 4 to follow it up. Bravo taking good damage, finally giving us the front half of Buckler Plating. Running out of armor on his side of the board. Another Titan's Fist for 4. We have a comfortable life lead and can sink this damage. On our turn, looking like we are going to attack with Rabble. It's an awkward hand. It is. Attack with Rabble, attack with E-Strike, bottom the Spreading Flames, say go again, follow it with Emberblade. It might be correct here to send E-Strike for 7, bottom the Stab Wound, and Arsenal the Spreading Flames to set up for something big, but I am still in a frame of mind where I want to get cards out of Bravo's hand. We don't have much armor left to block with. Bravo currently has 4 in hand. I'm a little worried about the last Starstruck, another Spinal Crush. Bravo's pitch stack has to be coming up. At this point, we know that there is a Starstruck and a Spinal Crush in that stack. So I like getting my damage where I can and pushing a little more. I like E-Strike, go again, pitch the stab wound to Emberblade. Thinking about our own pitch stack and potential fatigue coming up, having a Spreading Flames back in a hand of cards as a way to close out the game, it's pretty appealing. Choosing to draw a card here. Okay. We'll snap this E-Strike. We still have a choice to make between Emberblade or E-Strike. We've gotten a card out of Bravo's hand. I'm not as concerned about some dominated crush effect, so I'm okay leaving E-Strike in Arsenal here. Especially we have a lot of blues left in our deck, and they're going to start coming up. So having a way to turn a blue into 7 damage while still preserving cards in our deck sounds pretty good. And it is what we're looking to do here. I like sending Rabble, Ronin, Blaze, E-Strike for 7, rather than trying to Emberblade, Phoenix Flame. Start with the Rabble, certainly. We can see what is left on top of our deck, what a potential E-Strike draw a card would find us. It's a Soulbead Strike. You'll see me forget that later in this turn, that is a Soulbead Strike, but worth noting that when you're playing your own game, when you're paying attention and being better at the game than I am, you are not going to E-Strike draw a card, you are going to E-Strike +2. Get a Starstruck out of Bravo's hand, pick up the Phoenix Flame. Phoenix Flame for 1 here puts Bravo down to 5. This is where we should be E-Striking for 7. We are going to E-Strike, draw a card, but again, that's wrong, because we know it's on top of our deck, and we know it's a bad blue. And here's where we start to draw all of the blues that still exist in our deck. We have an option to block with Warmonger's Diplomacy just to get it out of our deck, preserve some life at the same time. But as it is, turning this Warmonger's into a Phoenix Flame, which lets Lava Vein attack, Blaze Headlong attack, Emberblade attack, Soulbead Strike can come in at the end. Sounds pretty good. We go down to 9. Bravo is absolutely trying to fatigue us at this point. So even this bad Warmonger's keeps cards in our deck, whereas blocking takes cards out of it. Here I like keeping the Warmonger's, taking our 4, turning the Warmonger's into a Phoenix Flame. But you are going to see me block here. Getting the Warmonger's out of the deck, like I said, not a terrible decision. All of these blues would be a lot better with a second Phoenix Flame in our graveyard. As it is, we don't quite have that, so we are going to just push forward with the 1 Phoenix Flame we have. The Phoenix Flame is going to let Soulbead Strike come in for 3 that at least threatens lethal. We'll see how Bravo wants to deal with this 4-power Blaze Headlong. He could just give us all of his armor. He could give us a card from hand. Let's see what happens with the Soulbead Strike. So we are at the start of Bravo's pitch stack. There was that Spinal Crush and Starstruck that we knew about. Here, blocking with the Sink Below, bottoming the Warmonger's Diplomacy, we are just looking for links on the chain. I can tell you I don't have a ton of experience with getting fatigued. I have no idea what's left in my deck. I do know there's a Spreading Flames in here, but aside from that, I couldn't tell you. So we'll get to send 4 attacks here. Bravo using up the armor just to preserve life is fine with me. We are at a comfortable enough life total that we can take a few Titan's Fists. Bravo gives us the last of the armor. We will send a Soul Bead Strike for 2. And see what we draw into. There's our Spreading Flames. We have a Soul Bead Strike to pay for the turn. We have a Brand. We have Assault the Wound. Tear Asundered Titan's Fist is going to get our Shuko, unfortunately. It will also get our Salt the Wound. Salt less good here. Bravo taking damage really just loses. Salt is unlikely to be anything more than 2 points of damage. But as it is, we are going to get to send pretty good damage this turn. Every single attack in our hand is going to be lethal damage. Bravo has no armor left. This does look a bit bleak as far as what do we have left? Are we ever going to be able to present more than 4 links in a turn, or does everything just get blocked? What is fortunate, and what you are going to see just now, we know that Bravo is running a gem in his deck. A gem that was pitched some time ago into the pitch stack, which we know we have reached, and we can assume that the last card in Bravo's hand does not block, so we take the win. But it was close. We have 6 cards left in our deck. I don't believe any of them are red. We have no way of putting more than 2 links on a chain. Pick the Phoenix Flame, attack for 0. Emberblade for 3. Any of our blues for 1 is not enough to win this game. We get Titans Fisted down and slowly lose. So having a second Phoenix Flame in our discard is really, really important for anti-fatigue. The way that works is with 2 blues in hand. At the end of your opponent's turn, you can pitch a blue, pick up a Phoenix Flame. On your turn, attack with the flame for 0, pitch your other blue to Emberblade for 3, then activate FaB, attack with your second Phoenix Flame for 2, it gets the Shuko bonus. Turning 2 cards in your hand into 5 damage, plus whatever damage you can present from the other 2 cards in your hand is something that a fatigue list has trouble dealing with, while also being offensive on their turn. All of this is to say, I mentioned at the start of the video, I'll mention it again, the current sideboard plan for this list has Flame Call Awakenings and a Phoenix Flame in the deck, in addition to our Phoenix Flame that we start with. It's anti-fatigue deck. Anti-fatigue tech. I don't believe that this Bravo or any Bravo is sitting down against FaB with the intention to fatigue us, but over the course of the game, once our decks start to thin out, once life totals start to really establish themselves, it is an option Bravo has available, and it's something you need to be aware of. I hope you enjoyed this game. Again, the deck list is in the description below. While you're down there, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, let me know if you have any questions, if you saw any misplays. I'm always happy to hear from you, always happy to receive feedback. Let me know how you feel about the editing, if this sideboard setup using FaB is better for you than using Talishar. I'm intending to change the sideboard demonstration up a bit over the next week or so. Try some stuff out, make sure I'm giving you all the best presentation, but I will see you all tomorrow for another video. Take care.